All right, Maddie, first edition of the Ask Maddie show. How you feeling, Matt?
Hey, I'm feeling pretty good. Love to be here talking about crypto.
What do you think of crypto right now, and what are you doing with your crypto? You doing any buying?
Yeah, I'm always doing a little bit of buying. I'm always doing a little bit of dollar cost averaging. I think from a more macro perspective, I don't think that the pain is done for 2023 yet. So I'm definitely sidelining some capital still. I'm not, being too antsy with my dry powder. So I'm still optimistic on having some of my value buys filled on XRP and, maybe a breakdown lower on Casper and, maybe even Zcash. So I'm trying to be patient with that stuff and not get too, hyped up on this most recent relief rally that we've seen in crypto.
Absolutely. All right, we got a couple of guys in here. I'm going to start pulling you guys in. Obviously, you're here to ask questions. So I'm going to start with Island. You there? You're live.
Oh, sorry. I was stepped away for a minute. My question is not about XRP. It's more Casper because I've been following you guys on Casper and Kevin. I was following Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin Cage.
Yeah, Kevin Cage. I know not to ask about price action, but I'm just eager to find out where do you see Casper end the year or early next year? Where do you see it? Where do you see the future price? Just give a bit of spill on it. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm good friends with Kevin Cage. We talk a lot about Casper and API 3 and projects that we're both bullish on. So I definitely, enjoy his research on it. So from a fundamental perspective, obviously very bullish from everything being an upgradable smart contract and being able to do permissioned and permissionless applications and it being built for enterprise. So there's a lot of great fundamental aspects to it. But one of the things about Casper specifically that I think is so optimistic about the future is these illiquidity wicks. So, there's a lot of examples of it, like when we look at VeChain. So when VeChain got launched on exchange, when we look at this from a perspective, right, there was a illiquidity wick, meaning when it got launched on exchange, there wasn't any buyers at that price, and price just keeps falling until there's buyers, right? But there was a illiquidity wick almost all the way to $1, and it filled most of it, about 25% of it, up to 25 cents in this last run, and then turned over. But there's examples like Aptos, which just recently ran, right, where we had this illiquidity wick, drops down and then fills in the future. Polkadot did the exact same thing where it goes back and fills in the future. So as far as, a specific date when price is going to get where, nobody can say exactly. But as far as, 2024 bull run, hey, everything's happening, Bitcoin halvings in action here. What I'm looking for on the minimum is to fill at least some of these daily candles on this wick towards like $1.35. So current market price to, $1.35 or so is like a 3,500% gain. But from like a retracement standpoint, if we were to like zoom out a little bit here and see like where these candle bodies are closing a little higher, that would probably be up towards like the $4 or $5 mark. That would be like my euphoric blow off top area where I would be selling a lot of my cash to be like $4.35. And even if we come back lower, that's fine. That's a good opportunity to rebuy. But anytime we see good fundamentals mixed with structures that look like this, where we have kind of that lack of demand initially, that means banks and institutions were interested at one point and then dumped on retail traders. So, I think anywhere from $1.35 to $4.50 or so is a reasonable expectation for end of bull cycle for Casper.
Okay, I'm happy. I'm happy with that explanation because I bought my bag and I stake it and I was like, I'm not selling till $1 Casper. I'm just holding. It's not money I need right now or nothing. I know it fluctuates and I'm not day-to-day trader to say buy now, sell now, buy now, sell. I can't be asking that because I have my normal job and I'm like,
right.
I'll wait till it gets to $1 and then I'll sell off some. So that's my plan. But I'm happy. I'm happy with that explanation. One thing that grabbed me to Casper is the upgradable contract because I don't think no other crypto offers that at the moment. I'm not sure, but
Right. No, it is very unique, and it's a very specific application, right? And I think that some people spread themselves too thin. They're trying to chase every competitor out there, but Casper is a very unique blockchain, and they just continue to build. They have incredible partners like IBM and Hyperledger. I'm just bullish on it from a fundamental aspect. And like you, I'm staking all of my Casper right now. It's stupid to hold your Casper and not earn that interest. You're earning 10, 11% on your Casper, and that's just additional Casper you didn't pay anything for that you're going to be able to sell at $1, $1.35 or even $4 or $5 in the future, just depending on what goes on there. So I'm in the same boat as you. I've just been patient with it. I've been buying a little higher, 5 or 7 cents. I've been lowering my average down here in this 2 or 3 cent range. If Casper dropped to a penny, I would absolutely be, taking a lot of my fiat reserves and dumping it into Casper to really reap some of that reward.
Yeah, okay. I'm happy to hear that as well. And one last question. Hope I'm not stealing anyone's shine.
No, you're fine.
One last question. Do you see the market making a pullback in the near future? Because I'm convinced we have already priced in the Celsius crash, the lunar crash, and the FTX crash. I'm convinced. I'm no expert or anything. I'm just watching the market from a distance. But I'm convinced those are priced in. And I've always learned if the crowd is saying we're going to 10K, we're not going. And I've noticed that, I've seen it. Like, if everyone's going that way, just go the other way. It's okay to be wrong sometimes, but I don't know what's
definitely. I think a lot of people try to time the bottom, and that's a foolish thing to do, right? You're never going to catch a dead bottom. You're not going to sell the exact top, right? It's not going to happen. But if you can,
that's true.
If you can catch relatively, averaging near the bottom and you can sell out near the top, like, you should be relatively happy with that. As far as what kind of happens next with Bitcoin and everything, I think everything is a little overextended with Bitcoin right now. We've had this huge parabolic run up, right? So from, just the beginning of this year, prices up 40%. We were up almost like 50%, so we've had this huge run up, but we didn't have any like back test of the broken levels. So at least from my perspective, what I'm looking for is something like this. So even if, like, let's say the bottom's in, right, 15.5 was the bottom, I think that maybe a little lower is possible. 13, 14 is still possible. But if, we're going to say that, the bottom's in, we should probably come back down and test the zone that was broken out of before we come and move significantly higher. So personally, I need to see 17.8 or 18,000 turned into support before I can say, okay, we're about to, enter a bull run right now. Because, again, from a macro environment, the United States is still very much, up for a recession, right? We know the Federal Reserve is most likely going to hike 25 basis points tomorrow. There's a lot of things that point towards more pain in the market. So we need to see confirmation that this wasn't just a rebalance to the upside and that we're actually going to establish a higher low.
Okay, happy with that. Yeah. Thank you for answering me. Thank you so much. So much information.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be in the dark watching.
Cheers.
Wow, what great questions.
Absolutely. No, I love these kinds of questions.
No, super informed questions, not like the typical, questions that me and you both see on the daily basis. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Is XRP going to $50 tomorrow?
We got another person in here. John, I'm going to pull you in here in a second. But that was a great conversation. I'm really happy to, hear people like that, because doing this, I assumed people to be running in here and, price target, but actually some valuable conversation. I loved it. John.
This
Talk
one?
to us, John.
How's everybody?
I'm well. How are you, sir?
Oh man, got to put my big ugly face on this.
No, it's beautiful. We love it.
I beg to differ. I'm just lurking, to be honest with you. I'm kind of newer to crypto. I do some stuff with commodities, and I'm exploring the possibility of doing some trading with crypto.
Okay.
Exploring it. I have something called Trade Navigator now. I'm looking at Ninja Trader. I don't know if those are good platforms to use for crypto. I know that they do have one a way for you to look at Bitcoin, but as far as like trading XRP and things like that, I don't believe that they have the ability to do that.
Right. You're going to want to mostly go offshore when you're looking for like leverage trading. You say you do commodities, so you look at wheat, oil, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Bonds and corn and
okay. So mostly like future stuff. You do maybe some options.
Yeah.
Okay, so with crypto, it's somewhat similar, but also simpler at the same time. So the two, leverage trading platforms that I've recommended and still use regularly is going to be KuCoin. They have a futures section there, as well as BitGet. My preferred is BitGet. Neither of those exchanges allow U.S. citizens to just onboard U.S. dollars right onto their exchange. So you're going to have to kind of hop a little bit. So generally, we go to Uphold or Coinbase or whatever your regular U.S. exchanges of choice. You buy some stable coins there. there, like some Tether. And then once those are seasoned up and the ACH transfer clears, you can transfer those coins over to the exchange, and then you can start leverage trading. They'll let you do on BitGet up to 100x leverage, and you can trade just about everything: Bitcoin, XRP, Solana, all the altcoins on there. And that's where we, in our weekly play section, that's where we suggest our members take the trades is on BitGet, because they have great liquidity. Everything gets filled, and overall just very easy user experience.
Are the charts pretty easy to read?
Yeah, so they actually integrate TradingView charts, which is what I use. I do all of my main charting inside of TradingView.com. It's the best software for charting. I've been using it for about 7 years now. There's literally nothing better than that. They integrate a version of it. It's like a light version, but they are easy to use. You can use all the tools very easily in there. But I do all my main charting inside of TradingView, and then I just go put my order in over on the BitGet platform.
Okay, good to know. And you can short. You can short positions as well as...
Exactly. And you can actually, on BitGet, you can also hedge. So you can actually be long and short at the same time.
Okay. Good to know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us, John. Do you have any other questions for Matt?
Nothing I can think of right now.
You're saying you're just getting in. Are you just getting into crypto, or have you stepped your toes into crypto at all?
I have a couple Bitcoins. I've got a bit of Ethereum. And I am nervously into XRP, and so I'm trying to create a nice, well-balanced portfolio of. Forgive me, I'm sorry about all the jumping around. I'm trying to create a nice, balanced portfolio of crypto. As you can see by the picture, I'm an older guy, so the crypto world sometimes escapes me. I'll leave that to you younger guys. But so I've got some stuff in Cardano.
Okay.
Polygon.
Nice.
No, I don't have Polygon. That's on my list.
Yet. Okay.
That's on my list. HBAR.
Nice.
XLM. Chainlink is on my list. I don't know if I can't find it or what the story is with Chainlink. So like I said, I think I'm going to do two portfolios. I'm going to do one. I think this is what I'm going to do: a short term, in other words, maybe 2-year portfolio, and then I'm going to keep some for maybe 8 to 10 years out.
Okay, nice.
And obviously monitor them, right?
Right.
Because anything can happen. But I'd like to monitor these and just see what happens if I go exceptionally long on something like this.
Absolutely. I think you have a lot of good picks in there. I'm very bullish on HBAR. XRP obviously is my largest holding. It represents about actually 50% of my entire portfolio. I've been stacking that about 5 years. And I have that short-term and long-term vision for XRP. So, I'm in a couple of years, I want to dump a lot of it, but I want to keep some of that for the next 5 or 10 years because I see the potential with remittance payments and moving money around the world in under 5 seconds for a fraction of a penny. And from a technical standpoint, XRP could definitely be worth, $100 to $1,000, honestly, in the next 10 years, just depending on obviously how cycles mature. We can't exactly put our finger on timing. But if we look at what Bitcoin's done, what Ethereum's done, how they respect those Fibonacci extensions over time, I think that's entirely possible. I would definitely recommend, if you're going to look towards adding maybe Chainlink, I would consider API 3. They do very similar things. They're both oracles, but API 3 is a younger guy. It does it via offline storage, so they're able to accomplish a lot more with less electricity. But overall, you have a really good grasp on what I would consider like long-term winners. Yep,
have some API 3. Bought $1,000 worth, but I don't know how many I have in my portfolio. Whatever $1,000 times whatever it's worth is what I've got. Because I think I just bought that a couple weeks ago. So
awesome.
Like I said, I'm trying to put together a better list of my portfolio holdings and trying to figure out where I'm going to go with all this, right? So I've got the two thoughts, shorter term and longer term.
Right, definitely. I look to just take a percentage and hold it long term if I have a good cost basis on it, right? If you're picking up Bitcoin, under 20K, maybe consider holding on to 25 or 30% of it long term and then selling 60 or 70% of it at your target so that you're able to buy back in because, it's as much as I believe in crypto and I don't think this asset class is going anywhere. I think it'll be a 20 or $30 trillion asset class in the next 10 years. I know that we're going to continue to move through cycles, right? And that means that just like tech stocks, we're going to see 80, 90% pullbacks on some of these altcoins. So I want to make sure that I'm stacking some of that cash when the profits are on the table so that I can reinvest in some of those long-term winners.
Sure. Well, what's your plan with XRP? Should things not go as well as we hope it goes?
Yeah, so I think that that's a really reasonable question. I think that what's happening right now with the library credits case is a great example of what could happen. So I think that everyone thinks there's this binary win or lose situation with Ripple Labs, and Ripple Labs is obviously a fintech company. It's not a digital asset itself. It's a company that facilitates on-demand liquidity corridors.
Sure.
So if Ripple loses, there's still the opportunity where XRP later sales receive a non-security status. So moving forward, XRP still receives clarity and Ripple gets fined $200 million and then has to, do all of these remedies with the SEC. There's many universes where XRP doesn't become a security. Most recently with the library hearing, we had, of course, the library team, get disgorgements. They're working on the remedies right now, but within the oral arguments, they've got the SEC to state on the record that the library token itself is not a security. So even in that most recent ruling, right, we see that library token is still trading not at $0, right? Of course, there was price depreciation on the news. That's always going to be a bearish, a knee-jerk reaction. But I think that there is just so much use case for consumptive purposes with XRP beyond the investment, and they can prove that to where I don't think we're going to have to be in a situation where XRP has this, security or non-security status. I think that it'll be classified a lot more closely like a commodity.
Sure. And you have to ask yourself too, what's going to happen with Ripple as far as their IPO? If, because they're going to IPO eventually. Is that going to be the most valuable asset is to get right into the IPO or the tokens?
So I'm personally going to be just waiting until the shares are actually available on market. Just because generally when IPOs come out, right, you'll see maybe a little spike, but then you see like a pretty decent cascade as market participants figure out what fair market value is. I definitely plan on building a aggressive Ripple position once those shares are available. I just don't plan on being involved pre-IPO. But I think overall, long term, because they're separate assets, right? One is a security. Ripple stock would be a security, and XRP would be more like a commodity. If XRP continues to behave with the rest of the cryptocurrency market and Ripple stock behaves more like a tech stock, XRP will still outperform Ripple stock just from like a percentage standpoint.
Okay. Interesting. Good to know. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure.
Great questions, John. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Cheers.
I loved that question right there. About
it was a great question.
Did that ring any bells for you? About
absolutely.
Moral of the story is don't hop in pre-IPO. And it's funny, because people get the opportunity to pitch and make money off of it. And it's very much talked about. But I jumped right when you asked that question. I thought, who we're both thinking about right now.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with, promoting something you like and whatever. But, I think that also there's certain influencers that don't disclose that they're receiving compensation for promoting the pre-IPO, right? And that's not so honest and, somewhat illegal.
Right. Well, Matt, first episode of the Ask Matty Show. I think it's a success. I think we ran, 20 minutes, a little bit longer than what we anticipated. But we'll be back next week. What do you think, Matt?
Excellent. Cheers. Let's do it.
All right. Later, guys.